Good afternoon and welcome back to the West Ham Network. Let me try and get this image off. I keep forgetting to take that image off. How terrible is it of me? My name's Anton. If you're new around here, please make sure you do go and subscribe to the channel, of course. And it is a massive week and I'm getting myself prepared. Got my little boy. He's got his suitcase packed. He cannot wait to get to this game tomorrow. I've got a little bit of a kind of story I want to talk to you about. We'll bring on a special guest, of course. And if you are interested in asking any questions, please do put a Q at the start. But a quick glance at the history book suggests that the 75 and 76 West Ham season was not particularly a successful one for us. In the first division, we stumbled to an 18th place finish, just 6 points above the relegation zone, with just 13 victories from 42 league matches. In the FA Cup, we were the holders, humbled 2-0 by Liverpool at Upton Park in the third round, while Spurs proved too strong at the fourth round stage of the League Cup. While home comforts proved hard to come by domestically, the European Cup Winners' Cup provided West Ham fans with some welcome enjoyment. We got through the early rounds, beating teams from the Soviet Union, who are now known in Armenia, beating them 5-2 and 4-2 in aggregate. Then the competition went into a 4-month hibernation before resurfacing back in March 1976. We were drawn against the Dutch Cup winners Den Haag, this time when football at Holland was a real force in continental and international competitions in the quarterfinals. John Lyall and Ron Greenwood's side travelled across Holland for the first leg and found themselves 4 goals down within 42 minutes. Second half brace from Billy Jennings gave West Ham hope for a miraculous comeback on home turf. With an optimistic just under 30,000 crowd inside the 3/4 full Upton Park, Alan Taylor, Frank Lampard, Billy Bonds complete the turnaround before one of their players scored a goal to set up a dramatic climax. But we held on though, and we got through on away goals, and that led us to facing Eintracht Frankfurt from West Germany in the semi-finals. They had breezed through the tournament themselves, winning all 6 of their ties and brushing aside Coleraine from Northern Ireland, Atletico Madrid of Spain, and several other clubs. Domestically though, they weren't going so well in the league, in the Bundesliga. And it was dominated back then by Borussia Mönchengladbach. As such, though, West Ham were up against a team who knew how to rise to the occasion in Europe, just like ourselves. The first leg was played at Eintracht in March 1976 in front of a crowd of 45,000 people, including a number of travelling West Ham fans. And those that were made the trip were cheered on by an early goal from the heroes Graham Paddon, collected from Trevor Brooken's really nice pass through. But having gone ahead, West Ham spent most of the remainder of the game trying to repel the home side, and Mervyn Day making fantastic stops and saves in the game. He was powerless to prevent them scoring a goal just inside the box, a low shot inside the left-hand post to level on 28 minutes. We had a goal disallowed before 2 minutes after the break. They went in front with a goal. We then saw another goal controversially chalked off, and so we returned home with a 1-goal deficit to overcome in the second leg. But we did that. We overturned them in the second leg, and we did beat them. So that should bring you back to a little bit of history of West Ham playing Eintracht Frankfurt. But I want to bring you back to a legend of the club. You know, having won the FA Cup in 1980, West Ham last, that was kind of, our European. We went into Europe. We were playing an opposition, a Spanish opposition team, Castilla. They were the visitors that came to Upton Park in the 1980-81 European Cup Winners' Cup. First round, second leg. UEFA had ordered the game to be played behind closed doors, saying that the crowd disturbances during the first leg in Madrid. And we had originally been fined a certain amount of money, and we were ordered to then play our next 2 home European ties, far away from Upton Park. However, we did negotiate, and we were able to have the game at Upton Park, but with not many spectators there. I think we believe there's over 260 spectators there. The first leg was played at the Bernabeu, and the Castilla recorded a 3-1 victory, taking that into the second leg at Upton Park. Jeff Pike set about reducing aggregate errors earlier on, driving home a fierce low drive from the penalty area in front of a deserted North Bank. After 19 minutes, Trevor Brooken's free kick from the left after half an hour found Mr. David Cross, who nodded home to level the tie in aggregate, but crucially gave West Ham the advantage on away goals. And it was Cross again who'd scored at the Bernabeu. We took a 4-3 aggregate lead 9 minutes later to turn the tie completely on its head. Paul Goddard slammed home from close range after Cross had played the ball back into the danger area. This was too much like plain sailing for West Ham, and in typical West Ham style, safe passage to the next round was not going to be routine. They fired home a fine strike from a long-range free kick to level the tie in both aggregate and away goals. But at the time, the 29-year-old David Cross became the hero as the tie went into extra time. 3 minutes before the end of the first period, Psycho met Brooken's right-wing cross with a flicked looping header to restore the host's aggregate advantage. And he completed what remained the only hat-trick by a West Ham United player at the European stage. In the 119th minute, turning home Alan Devonshire's low cross. We triumphed 5-1 on the night, 6-4 on aggregate. So, without further ado, we've had him on already and we can't wait to bring him back on again. Mr. David Cross, welcome to the channel. How are you?
Well, I'm fine, Anton. Thank you. I'm fine.
Good, thank you. I wanted to bring people back to the kind of Eintracht Frankfurt because obviously we're coming up against them tomorrow evening, but it's relevant to talk about your history of playing in European football, especially being the West Ham player to score a hat-trick in a European tie. But with the game tomorrow, David, there are going to be people asking questions in the chat, but, you've been part of the club. You've been part of a European tour with West Ham. How will the players be feeling today, David?
They'll be looking forward to the game, I'm sure. I mean, I don't think when we were playing, I don't think our season was going brilliant in the league. So it was almost a bit of a relief to go into the European games and really enjoy it. I mean, an experience not a lot of players get in their careers playing in Europe. And certainly it's only my season with West Ham that I had those half dozen or so games playing in European competitions. So I'm sure the lads will be looking forward to it. And I mean, they're on such good form as well. I mean, we're playing well. We're a good side. We've got good players. We've got great attitude. We've got a baby in there.
I could actually hear my son through the other room. He's having a right good old sing-song. I think he's trying to sing Bubbles. He's 5 months old, David.
5 months old, all right. Okay.
5 months old, yeah. So, yeah, do you think the occasion is going to get to them, or do you think Moyes is managing them? And I suppose that kind of goes back to how you were feeling when you were playing in European ties, especially away from home, and then obviously going back to the Upton Park.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it's so professional now, and our lads know what they're about. The systems that they've played have worked, and everyone seems to know the job in the positions that they're playing, and so they'll be looking forward to this. And you don't get many chances to get, so close to winning a trophy that they have. They'll be so much looking forward to it. I mean, I must admit, I haven't done a great deal of homework on the Frankfurt team, and I don't know I don't even know the players. I don't know how much they're doing in the league even, because obviously I only got the message to come onto the chat last night, so I haven't had time to do any research on Frankfurt. But our lads, it'll be about them, and the way we're playing, the system that we're playing, they're so accomplished in what they're doing. I'm sure the lads can't wait for tomorrow night.
Sorry, can you hear me now? You can hear me now. Do you think with the current West Ham...
You sounded like Paddy McGuinness in Phoenix Nights then. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? Do you think that the recent league form, which has not been as bright as it's been most of the season, can, the players can maybe push that to a side? And do you think Moyes is kind of doing the right thing now by saying, Europa League is our focus, especially when we lined up against Chelsea, David, and we saw big changes in the team from West Ham?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I've certainly found when we had our FA Cup run and then our European Cup Winners' Cup run the next season was that it was a relief to get out of the league system, you know, the league games that you were playing. It was something different. And we really look forward to it. And I'm sure our lads will be doing. You know, I think the change, the one big difference between, I'm going back 40 years, Anton, aren't we? You know, like, crikey, you wouldn't have even been around. You're not even, by the looks, well, man, you might be looking at me.
I was just waiting for that one.
Yeah. But it's, you know, it's different in that we were 11 players throughout this, you know, unless you got injured, you were playing.
Yeah.
No one got dropped. There was no rotation of players. There's no squads of 16. You know, it was just those 11, maybe 12 players who went out and we were there virtually all the game. I think I played that season. I think I played 62 games, you know, and no rest, you know, luckily no injuries that season. So, you know, now with the rotation, there's always questions about the manager, which team he picks for which games, isn't there? Because everyone's got an opinion. I mean, every single, not just West Ham fans, but every single fan on social media that I see seems to know much better about football than the managers of their clubs, which is amazing, really, because, you know, someone who runs a fish and chip shop in Bognor Regis knows more than David Moyes about how we play, you know. So, but there is a lot of difference between when we played, when it was a group of 11, 12 players, and now, I mean, it's only 16 or 18, isn't it, who might be in the team that night.
And do you know what? You actually make quite a similar-ish comparison, because predominantly Moyes does like to work with a small squad. He's done it previously at the previous clubs with Everton. He's doing it with West Ham. You're talking about 14, 15 collectively players that he kind of predominantly uses. Yeah. And if you look at, like, say, the Man Cities of the world and the Champions League and the Chelseas of the world, they're rotating their squads and borderline rotating 11 players. So Moyes has a kind of close affiliation to the kind of traditional way of sticking by the kind of core of players, and that seems to be what he's kind of done this season and working with that small squad. Yeah,
I mean, you're right. He's old school, isn't he, David? And he knows what his best team is. He will, without a doubt. And there will be times when he thinks, well, I've got to rest him. I've got to, you know. The big one for me is strikers. You know, poor Michail Antonio, really, you know, he has to do the job, doesn't he? We've not been able to purchase a backup even, or someone to play alongside him if he went to a different system. But you know, it's different. But you're right, David has certainly got the group of players that he knows are his best 12, 13 or 14 who he wants to rely on. And perhaps when you look at Manchester City, which was your comparison, you know, they've got like high quality players in every position. You could almost, at Manchester City, play a different 11. And, you know, most of if you call them the second tier, are all international players of their own right. So, you know, we've not got that kind of budget to be able to buy so many players or keep them happy. I mean, that's one of the problems. You know, top class players not playing. Players want to play. They want to be picked. They want to see that team sheet and be on it. And are disappointed if they're not. You know, getting on for the last 10 minutes doesn't really compensate. So it's difficult being a manager in these days. But David's, I mean, what a fantastic job he's done in his second spell with us, you know, to get us into the position where we are, where we feel a bit disappointed if we're not in the top six. You know,
absolutely.
You know, 3 or 4 years ago, we'd be delighted if we weren't in the bottom six. So, you know,
but you kind of make that, again, you're bringing up, like, it's a valid point about, you know, trying to manage the expectations of a top quality player if you're going to have to pay them top quality bucks to bring them in. And at that point, then, you know, David Moyes is so old school. He doesn't, you know, they will not be expected. They may expect to play, but Moyes doesn't work that way. You've got to work hard for the team to fit into this team to get in. So it's managing the potential egos that you've got on the bench. And because West Ham have got, the modern era have gone through that kind of Chicharito, who's maybe been paid a certain amount of money sitting on the bench and he's not playing, and Felipe Anderson and Sebastian Haller, who today we're hearing has been linked with Manchester United, etc. You can actually see that it is a tough job, and you can maybe see why, as a modern manager, he likes to work with that smaller squad, because it's easier to manage. And I think, I mean, going back to your time playing, David, what was the kind of, atmosphere like in the changing room, especially when you were on a European run?
It was different because you always you knew the two legs. It is a different kettle of fish, really, playing two legs. You can go away from home, lose 1-0, and it's a good result, because you've not, even though you've lost that game, you feel as though you can come home and beat the opposition 2-0 and get through. Even better if you lost 2-1 because you got an away goal and you prevent them scoring. It's so much. It was so much different to a normal league game playing in Europe, knowing it's two legs, and a lot of it was containment. If you went away and made sure that not conceding was very, very important, so that you could come home and get a start early on, as you said when you mentioned the Castilla game when Pikey scored very early on. I think it was in a couple of minutes. Now that gave us a great lift from being 3-1 down. Now we're 3-2. And our away goal was a big thing for us from them. But I'm sure the players they'll be thriving on this. This is what professional football is all about. I mean, and I know the lads get paid huge amounts, and you might say, well, what a great week he's had, sat on the bench to pick all that money up. But footballers want to play. They want to be out there playing. They relish playing in front of crowds who support them. And we're all footballers. They haven't changed that much in all those years in terms of what they want to do. When Saturday afternoon comes or Wednesday night in a European game, they want to be on the pitch and playing. And I'm sure we've got a good set of honest players who want to play for the club. You can sense that. I mean, I'm watching from 200 miles away, and I haven't been to a game all season, but I've watched as many as I can on TV, and it is different. When you're watching so remotely away from home, you don't get the vibes that the fans will get. The only game I've actually seen was the Man United game at Old Trafford, where I was invited with a group of fans to go and watch that one. That was the one with the last-minute goal.
Last minute, I was there as well.
We lost. So it's not easy for me to kind of analyse exactly what's going on with the team, but I'm just so impressed with how quite clearly those players want to play for the fans, for the club, and for the badge that they've got on the shirt.
Yeah, you can absolutely see that. You can absolutely feel that. And I suppose it's a big thing down to the West Ham fans to keep the faith in the process, because I say a lot, in my modern time of supporting the club since I've been a kid, it's the first time in my memory that I can genuinely remember West Ham consistently playing well over 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Not just one season and then dropping, having a bit of dip of form and going back and forth. And if I go back right to the start of the season, one of the predictions would be that try and finish in the top 7 or 8, give ourselves a good account in the Europe, and try and win a cup if we could. But we could win we could. I don't want to get carried away, but we're now in the semi-finals and the competition's wide open. So we could find ourselves in a position where we actually could win a European Cup and finish in the top 7 or top 8 in the league. But going back to a particular player, David, and we had you on right back when we were starting the European campaign. So it's really interesting that we're still now talking about Europe, and we're about to enter May, and we're still in the European competition in the semi-finals.
Yeah. I mean, it's great for the fans, isn't it? I mean, it's fantastic to think that your season, it's not, sometimes even as players, you get to this stage of the season and you look and think, oh no, we've got 5 games left. Get to the end, let's get a break. Let's get over to Mallorca and just have a break and get away from this long season that's gone on. But when you get in a competition such as this, and certainly that FA Cup year for us, the 79-80 season, you couldn't wait to get there, and you were still as fresh on May the 10th when we were playing in the FA Cup final as we had been at the first game of the season, because there was something to play for, something so exciting that meant so much, not just to you as players and coaching staff, but to the fans. And West Ham is a fan-based club. It really is. And I played for a lot of clubs, not just West Ham. I had half a dozen clubs that I played for. West Ham certainly was the biggest fan-based club that I played for. And it meant a lot to the players to play certainly it was at Upton Park in those days, which was an iconic ground. But I mean, even now that the stadium is it's now feeling like it's West Ham, more than it did 5 years ago when people were complaining that it wasn't right. That's just, there's a running track. It's our stadium now, and I get the feeling these players are used to it. They like it, and they're playing for the club and they're playing for the fans, and that's very, very important to West Ham fans who are Cockney East End people who know what it's all about, and they know what they want to see on a Saturday afternoon when they walk across that bridge to the stadium, in the way that those fans used to walk down Green Street when I played.
Yep. Coming on to a particular player at West Ham, then, Antonio, he does come in with a hard bit of criticism, in particular from West Ham fans. He is short of goals recently, started the season, and he has been a absolutely fantastic performer for West Ham. He was rested against Chelsea at the weekend. He probably goes under the radar because of all the hard work he does off of the ball. But as someone who has led the line for West Ham for many a year, David, what kind of advice would you give to someone like Antonio? What's going through, in your opinion, Antonio's head, and how does he get past not scoring goals for so long and try and progress and move forward?
It's difficult to know what kind of a lad Mikel is. I'll give you a couple of examples. When people used to ask me what position I played, or even now, people say, "What position were you?" if they weren't aware of that, and I used to say, "I was a goal scorer." "Oh, what do you mean? You were a centre forward?" I said, "Yeah, but I was a goal scorer." "What do you mean by that?" I said, "Well, that was my job. My job was to score goals. That was my job. If I didn't score goals, I hadn't done my job that day." And I lived and died on that. And throughout my career, not just at West Ham. If you ask Mikel Antonio what his job was, it's not as a goal scorer in the way that I was. He's got a different role. He does such a good job for everyone else in the team. I would imagine he's the kind of player who all the other 10 players on that team are delighted when he's playing, because he gives them so much leverage because of the way he can hold the ball up and keep defenders occupied. So he's got a different role in some respects to what I had. And then going back to my era again, I know this is boring for people. So here we go again.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Trust me, it's not.
But Stuart Pearson was my teammate in that FA Cup final and then the European run next season. Stuart wasn't bothered about scoring goals. He didn't care who scored, just so long as we won.
Yeah.
I wasn't that bothered about the result, just so long as I scored. That was my mental way of going about football. Maybe because of where I'd grown up from as a young player. All the big clubs around Manchester didn't let me go. I never even got the chance. The only club that was interested in me was Rochdale, who were a third division team. I learnt the hard way. I was 18. I left school, done my A levels, became a professional, thinking I'll have 1 year and then they'll find out I'm no good. Gradually, because I learnt and I was intelligent and I listened and I got on with it and I didn't mind getting hurt to score goals, my career kind of improved. And I was always a player who never ever felt that was 100% certain of getting a contract next year. Even when I was at West Ham, every time I played, it was to make sure that when that team got picked next week, I was on it. It kind of an attitude, not of being, I never ever felt I was the best player in the team. I always thought I might have been even the worst one. So I had to work hard, and working hard as a centre forward then wasn't enough. For me, I had to score goals. When I talked to Stuart Pearson, who was a high-class footballer who'd played for Manchester United for years and then came to us, Stuart didn't need that. He didn't need that thing of scoring a goal. His contribution, because everyone knew what a good player he was, he just was concerned with winning the game for our team. For me, obviously winning the match for the team and for the club and the fans was important. But even if we'd lost 3-1, if I'd scored that one goal, I would go home Saturday night happy, because I considered that was my job, to score goals. Now, going back to Antonio, maybe that's not his job. Maybe his job's to link things in, hold the ball up, get support, and other people score goals. You know, there are different roles. He's not a genuine number 9. He wasn't a number 9 when I watched him play for Notts County when he was, you know, at the early stages of his career, because don't forget, he came from non-league, didn't he? Came from non-league football as a start. You know, it really does amaze me that West Ham fans criticise him. I mean, again, it's difficult because I don't see all the games. I don't go live. I can't see exactly what's going on when the ball's at one end and what he's doing. But to me, he would be a dream to play for as a centre forward like myself.
Yeah,
I bet I'd get. I think we'd get my last season with West Ham. Not my last season, but the one that was in a big one, the 80-81 season when I got 34 goals. I reckon if I'd had him as a strike partner, bearing in mind he's a lot younger now than, you know, what he is now, if he played alongside me in that team, I reckon I'd have got another 10 goals because of what he would give me. You know, he would have taken so much weight off me, whereas I was taking a lot of the weight as well as getting all the goals. So
I suppose that's, David, I suppose that's really what even like some West Ham fans are excited about the prospect of this summer window. Because we do know, well, Moyes has stated it several times. The board have stated it several times. We are going to strengthen. We need to strengthen this summer. You have to freshen things up a little bit. But, you know, you're making the valid point there. As someone who is a goal scorer and was a goal scorer for West Ham, to have someone like Antonio beside you, you would have absolutely loved it and fed off of it. Absolutely fed off of it.
That's right, but I mean the system is different, isn't it? We were a 4-4-2 team, and it's, you know, the game has changed. It's, you know, he plays up top, but virtually on his own and having to do all that work. But it just amazes me that people criticise him. You know, when you think where he's come from, when you think what his original position was, he was a right winger when I watched him. When I was working for West Ham and when I was working for Blackburn Rovers as an analyst, and I watched players, he was a wide player who got past people and put balls into the box. The fact that he got changed in his position to be a striker and be a number 9 is a big thing for, you know, for a player to completely change his role in the team. I think he's done a great job for us. I mean, as I say, I would have loved to have played alongside him, bearing in mind the difference in ages, obviously. But you know, he criticising players. Really, I don't understand. You know, they're our players. I would never criticise a player who was playing for my team unless he didn't try. That was the one thing that players, and certainly of my era, wouldn't have. You know, you could have a star player, but if they weren't trying, then you dig them out.
Yeah.
Everyone makes mistakes. Not everyone plays well every game, but just so long as you're giving everything you've got, then I don't think you can complain. I know, you know, our fans can be fickle, but I was amazed when I found out only recently that, you know, a group of our fans, not a group, but a certain section of our fans do criticise Antonio. I really can't understand it.
Yeah, I think I just find it really interesting, especially coming from yourself, David, who's been around around football as a professional footballer, but around our club. And you know, you've been involved in so many important West Ham games through your career. And I think, you know, asking you the question, how tall are you, David?
6'2".
6'2". So you were big, strong centre forward. Obviously, Antonio's got a similar, you know, stature. I mean, what was it like? What were European teams like to play against? And did they kind of fear your stature? Did they fear your goal scoring ability? And then the second part to that question is, when they look at Antonio and how he can be a bit like a bull in a china shop and be quite, you know, strong, aggressive, pacey. You know, would European teams fear a striker like that because they don't really come across many strikers like that? You know,
I would maybe not, and I would think that the scouting networks from the European clubs would be the big message. I think would be, if you can contain him, you've got a, you know, that's maybe a huge percentage of keeping West Ham quiet. If you can stop Antonio holding the ball up, if you can get there first, if you can nip in front of him and make sure it doesn't turn you, that I think that would be a big factor in the scouting system from opposition clubs. No, get a grip of Antonio. If he doesn't play well, maybe West Ham won't play well. And I always used to think that whatever team you were playing for, if you work out that if your strikers don't, and I'm going back to a 4-4-2 system, but if a team's strikers don't play well, usually the team don't play well. If the strikers are on fire and are chasing and running into channels and holding the ball up and getting support and then getting in the box, just because they're playing well, the team will play well. I mean, maybe it's a selfish thing, maybe it's a conceited thing, but I always used to think that your strikers were the key to what went on. Obviously, your goalkeeper, if your goalkeeper's on form and he's saving all sorts, that's huge as well. But usually, if your forwards are playing well, the team will play well, and your team will get results because of what the forwards are doing. Whatever else goes on in the team, however many passes you give in midfield, however many times you're preventing the opposition getting through your back four, if your strikers play well, your team usually plays well.
Plays well, yeah, absolutely.
And that what they will be looking at as a team, as a group, looking at West Ham United. They will be saying, if you can get a grip of this guy up front, we've got a chance of beating West Ham.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got many questions from the chat. I'm going to jump into it, but people are just giving me some comments and remembering some things. So Kimbo's saying, I remember thousands of us sitting outside the ground listening to the radio when we had to play behind closed doors. What a night. Come on, you Irons. Just out of interest, though, could you actually hear the fans from outside the stadium when the game was behind closed doors, Psycho, or were you so focused on the game?
We couldn't. No, I can understand people being on Green Street, hoping that we would, they would have an influence on the game, but no, not really. What the big thing we were conscious of was how quiet it was, but that you could actually hear your own teammates and the opposition teammates talking, because normally you didn't hear that. Because of the huge amount of noise from the 40,000 people in Upton Park. You rarely heard a great deal of chat going on, but we could hear ourselves, we'd hear ourselves and hear them. And that was really what resonated with me about that game, how strange it was. I don't think, honestly, we could hear the fans from outside, from Green Street and in the car parks. I really don't think we could, being honest. But we could, it was so strange to be able to, and not just hear what our teammates were saying and what the opposition was saying, but the echo rebounding around the stadium always was coming back to you as well. So it was really odd. It really was odd.
We've got Irish Tommy has asked the question, did you find that you were more motivated to play well in big European games?
No, not really. Going back to what I was saying earlier on about my background as a player, leaving school and signing for a third division club, not always doubting whether I was good enough. I knew I had to give everything in every game. I mean, every game for me was a huge plus that I was a professional footballer going out there. Playing for West Ham was the biggest plus because for some reason the fans liked me. I mean, I wasn't everyone's cup of tea. I've said this before. At certain clubs, I would imagine fans might have, right, Cross playing up front. Yeah, he's all right. He's not bad. I'm not sure what he's good at, what he's not good at. But but West Ham fans, for some reason, seemed to take to me and like me. So I couldn't wait to get out there. And the way it's going for our guys, I think that it's not just for us. When I played a big game, it was every game. Every game was important to me because, as I said, I lived and died on goals. I didn't hide behind the fact. As I said with Stuart Pearson, I couldn't understand. Stuart was my big mate in that season that he played, and I said, Stuart, I can't understand that you're not bothered that I've scored 2 goals and you haven't scored that game. It didn't worry Stuart because he was so confident in his own ability. I didn't have a great deal of confidence in my own ability, so I had to score goals to prove that I was good enough to be out there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. Absolutely. Irish Tommy goes on and says, in that season we finished third. John Lyall only used 16 players all season. Irish Tommy comes back and says, do you think it's a good thing that the away goal rule has been scrapped?
Yeah, I hadn't even realised. I was watching a game the other night and sat just watching the TV, and I just said to my wife, I said, have we got an away goals rule now, or is it? And I hadn't even realised that it had been scrapped. I'm not sure whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, it was obviously brought in years ago to prevent the opposition team just putting the 10 men. I think it was long before you, Anton and Tommy, but I remember the Inter Milan team was just, if they played away from home, it was just really a defensive block of 10 players. It's just one goalkeeper and 10. You're not going to score, and hopefully with 5 minutes to go, we get a break and we beat you 1-0. So I think the away goals rule was brought in to prevent teams just coming, parking the bus on the opposition's pitch, and the incentive to get a goal away from home was huge. In case the draw, in the end, the draw on the tie, your away goal would then count double. So I think it's refreshing that you just go and you play, and if you beat them, the score is what it is, without that away goal calculation.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question, Tommy. Deborah and Dave still remember fondly David's 4 at, well, excuse the language, White Hart Lane, we'll say. And then Bob is going in saying Tottenham 0, David Cross 4. Desmond is saying, good to see you, Dave. Cycle Cross, old school. Come on, you irons. Gaza saying cycle. Happy Hammerette is buzzing with cycle. Kieran Devaney, good day, Anton. Kieran's an expat who now lives in Australia, and you're one of his heroes. And he's always said that about yourself there, Crossy. And he's got a question for you. He says, do you think you would fit in a David Moyes team?
Well, being 70, I'll probably struggle for fitness, I think. So, I mean, I
don't know.
Well,
you're looking well.
My wife's got me running 5 miles a day at the moment. But that's only because she thinks I'll be 35 miles away by next Saturday, I think. But I think that was the one big thing when John Lyle signed me, that I didn't think I was a West Ham player. And he told me, John, I think I've said this to you on the podcast before, Anton, that what John said to me, and when I said that he said that's why we've signed you, because you're not a West Ham player, you're not a typical West Ham player, you've got something we haven't got. So I think someone who scores goals is going to get in any side. The fact that you can get on the end of stuff in the box, but I mean the game's changed so much now, and I would think most of the players who played in the team that I played in would fit in with David Moyes. That all of the 11 players who played in the cup final and played in that European campaign. The game doesn't change that much. Tactics change, but good play. I mean, it's the old saying about if you want to be a good manager, get good players. So the fact that David Moyes is so knowledgeable about the game and knows what he wants, I think he would only get someone like me if he thought he was that player would fit into that system and the way he wants to play. But I'd be disappointed if I was at that age, and I would want to be in that team, especially, as I say, if Mikel Antonio was playing and taking all that weight off me, because that was the big job I had. I was taking the weight off Pop Robson when I first went there, Stuart Pearson, and then Paul Goddard. I was the one doing like the graft, the hard work, chasing, the battling against the big centre halves, the stuff that Antonio's doing now. And so that was my job. So, and I was happy to do that. The fact that I could get on the end of stuff and score goals was a bonus, really. But I mean, I think I would fit in, but every player would think they'd fit in the modern era.
You would adjust to what the boss says.
You'd adapt and evolve. Yeah. That's exactly right.
And I think Harry makes the point here. He says, love Cross. He wasn't sure when you first brought him in, but he gives 100% every time, and that's why I love him. A question here from Happy Hammerette. Now, I don't know if you saw the Lyon game. Dembele, who played for Lyon, winked when Creswell got sent off. Now, I know, we didn't have back then during those games, there wasn't cameras here, there, and everywhere. But if there was a particular player winding you up, Crossy, in a particular game, especially in Europe, how did you handle that situation?
I know. Well, I did see that incident. I mean, I wanted to punch him when I saw that, when he did that wink. I wanted to I really did. That so annoyed me so much that you could cheat that badly. But when back in those days, then everyone wound you up. The foreign players wound you up. I think I've spoken about this before when I've been on your cast in the last few the games, that the opposition was so different when you played on their ground than when they played on our ground, that they would do anything on their ground and got away with it because the refs would turn a blind eye. Back then in European games, when you were in Spain or whether in Romania or wherever you were playing, and then those thugs who played against you, who would do anything to kick you and punch you while the ball was at the other end, when they came to Upton Park, they were meek and mild, thinking we were going to do that to them. And we didn't. We just got on with it. We were English or Scottish, we were British, and we just got on with it because that was our mental attitude. That, you know, we didn't do what they did. They didn't try and wind. We didn't try and wind them up. We just thought if we wanted to play football and be better than them. When you went away from home in Europe in those days, whether it's the same now, I don't know, because as you quite rightly point out, television cameras are there all the time and picking everything up. But I mean, I was getting punched and kicked when the ball was in our penalty area. You know, the two centre halves marking me, they'd be punching me, digging me, sticking the nut on me. You know, it was almost a game in itself to just stop them injuring me while the ball was at the other end. It was so ruthless. And as I say, when those two players who'd been marking me came to Upton Park, they wanted to be my best friend because I thought I was going to do that.
They knew you were going to do something back to them,
but
and they would probably be standing there looking at you, thinking, "Look at the size of this guy."
Well, I mean, I am 6'2", but I was only 11 stone. I mean, I wasn't big and strong. I was just tall. In fact, one season I had some mercury injected in my spine one summer. The only trouble was that in the summer I was 8'3", and in the winter I was only 4'5". So it was an experiment that didn't work. But no, I was tall.
That's like weighing me and Russ up. Actually, you know, I'm 6'4". Russ is about 5'2". So you know.
No, but I mean, I was tall, but I wasn't big and strong by no means.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple more questions, David, because I know it's middle of the day and I know you're a very, very busy man. I know your wife's got you working extremely hard.
Yeah,
behind the scenes.
This feels like I'm going on my holidays, Anton, having something to do.
Where are we? We've got a question here. Gaza's asking, what do you think it would have been like playing against players from the likes of Dawson, Craig Dawson? You know, he signed for West Ham, probably originally as the kind of backup centre half, and is now finding himself pretty much a consistent performer week in and week out, and no nonsense, and getting his nose bashed week in and week out.
He's been brilliant for the club. Again, his background is very similar to mine. Started at Radcliffe Borough, non-league club. Got signed by Rochdale, which is my first club. Not ironically, but interestingly, Craig was also a cricketer before he was a professional footballer, and played against my own son. Played in the same league as my son. He played for Rochdale Cricket Club. My son Bobby plays for Hayward Cricket Club, and they played against one another quite regularly 10 or 15 years ago now. Probably Craig's 31. I think he's younger than Bobby. But I remember there was a cup final that Craig played in. Craig was a bowler, and Bobby, my son, was obviously a opening batter at the other end, and it was a very tight cup final that we played in. And I really remember Craig playing in that. But he's a local lad with a kind of a local attitude, if you like, to what we are up here. No nonsense, gets on with it, doesn't he? Gets on with it, does the job that he's required to do, and then adds the plus of going up to the other end and for free kicks and corners, and, you know, giving everything he's got to get on the end of the stuff that comes in, and you know, his bonus is the goals he scores for us as well. So I mean, he's been fantastic for us. I think
really has.
It really has, for next to nothing, if you like, in terms of how much we paid for him. But I think all the recruitment's been good. You know, I've said this before, but you know, the Czech boys who've come in have done well and look as though they're part of the club, and And
they seem to be, they seem to be, the Czech boys seem to be quite pivotal as to one of the reasons why we're doing there. They seem to be really, not just fan favourites, but team players, in the squad favourites. And I think they've instilled that kind of the discipline that Moyes wants, which is the hard working mentality. They're first in at training. We hear that they're last out of training. We hear that they give everything at the training sessions. They don't ever want to be subbed. They don't ever want to come off the park, but they're respectful when they do. And it probably instills that discipline. And they're probably, players that when other teams in the squad look at them and think, well, we need to look up to them, and that's good to have around the squad, isn't it?
Well, you're right. I mean, they sound that what you've described there is a proper footballer.
Yeah.
That is exactly what you want from a footballer. Don't matter how much, I know people complain about how much footballers get paid these days. But if you're getting honest lads like that, and I've said this loads of times about our team at the moment and our squad, that we seem to have a group of players who want to get out there, do the job for the team, do the job for the fans, give what they've got, all honest players. A couple of exceptions of foreign players that we've had over the last couple of years. And I won't mention names, but you'll know who I'm talking about, who probably not given 100% in every game that they've played. And a couple of those lads have now left the club. But, we've seemed to have a group of honest players who want to get out there and do the job properly. Craig Dawson being a huge example. Jared Bowen, again, is, an example of someone who not many people have really heard of, I don't think. And then he arrives at our club as a right-sided player or as a wide player, and occasionally has to play up front on his own, doesn't he? If Michael Antonio's injured, he's the one who's been playing up top. So, I'm just really impressed by the attitude our players have. But that comes from the coaching staff as well and the manager. You don't just get that. You come and you buy into what that philosophy is, and I think that's where we've done well. And again, going deeper into the club's depth, you don't just get players like that out of nowhere. Our recruitment staff are doing a good job to bring those kind of players in and recognise what our manager wants.
Yep, absolutely. There's loads of questions coming in, David. But DJ Russie B's in the house. You'll know Russ. He says, yes, from Raspberry Russ, what's your preference, playing a game a week with time to recover and train, or play more regularly?
The big thing that you liked when you had a successful team was playing constantly Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. Because if you played just Saturday to Saturday, which, used to be in those days, training was hard through the week. You'd have a really hard Monday and Tuesday running, physical running sessions that a lot of footballers don't like. I mean, I didn't mind that. I didn't mind the hard work in the running sessions, but some players hated really difficult sessions. So the fact that you were playing on Saturday and then you got another game on Tuesday meant that you didn't get hammered on Monday morning in training. You just kind of tick over and get the tactics right. Then you play your game either on Tuesday or the Wednesday, and then again you just tick over on Friday for the game on Saturday. So most players love playing midweek games. Certainly we did when we played. We wanted to play midweek games so that training wasn't physically hard. I mean, some training sessions you would have on a Monday morning, and going back then, when the manager and the coaches would know the lads will have had a drink over the weekend after the match, maybe on a Sunday afternoon and maybe even on a Sunday night, you would get absolutely hammered on a Monday. So much so that, you'd be physically sick, be retching up. You were so hard, the sessions were, that you just loved playing midweek so that you didn't have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Loads more questions, but I'm going to only take a couple more. But Ronda and Tony Tanti, I think that's a lovely comment. Thanks for the FA Cup final win in 1980, as I was the only person cheering for West Ham, my local pub in Sydney. I was 20 and a West Ham fanatic. Thank you. That's a nice comment there. Happy Amaret's come back in. You were a no-nonsense player, Crossy, and didn't seem afraid of anyone on the pitch. How important is the attitude in today's game, in your opinion?
What was the last bit of the question?
It says here, you were a no-nonsense player, Crossy, and didn't seem afraid of anyone on the pitch. How important is this attitude in today's game, in your opinion?
Well, certainly players soon pick up if you're frightened. If you get a kick early on or you get a whack early on, and you just go and hide, then the opposition players weigh that up straight away. I mean, I wasn't particularly brave. I just was stupid. If the centre halves were coming for me in a big way, I'd give it them back, because, like all bullies, if they're trying to bully you and you shrink away, then the bully will bully you even more. If you give them a bit back, then it makes them think. And that's how I was. As I say, I wasn't particularly brave. I was just stupid enough to take the hits. And I think it still goes now. You certainly in those days, a centre half would weigh you up in the first 10 minutes. He'd hit you hard. If you came back for more, it would make him think. If you shrunk away and didn't fancy it, he'd weigh that up straight away, and he knew he'd got you. And so it was really a mental battle as well as a physical battle to make sure that I started realising that if I started hitting them the way they wanted to hit me, it would make them think even more. And so, as the man said, a no nonsense, not afraid of anything player, it was just the way I was. It was just the way I realised I had to be, because otherwise I wouldn't have been a good enough player if I didn't have that attitude and that aggression and that kind of hard-working attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question for you, though, Mr. David Cross, and it's from Ross. What is your score prediction for the game tomorrow, the first leg at home against Eintracht Frankfurt? And I don't know, some players come on, ex-pros come on and say, don't like giving predictions, but maybe you want to give like the mentality the players will be in, the space of mind they'll be in. So it's up to you how you want to answer that question.
It's so difficult. It's to know what a score is going to. Oh yeah, we're going to win. There's something on television for the Man City fans before the game last night, and they asked one woman, and she said, "Oh yeah, we'll win 6-0." And how on earth can you predict what a score is going to be? I think you've just got to hope that for the second leg, you're in a position where you're still involved. You're not out of the game completely, and whatever the score is, you feel, again, because you've played them once, you'll know how they play, and you can maybe exploit what you might feel is a weakness in their team. But like most players, I don't like giving score predictions, because who would have predicted that score last night for Man City Real Madrid? Yeah. You couldn't predict that. And certainly you'd hope that you don't concede, and you'd hope you can get as many goals as you can. But I would take a 1-0, maybe even a draw, so that when you go in the second leg, you've still got a chance. They've got 90 minutes ahead of you, where you're still in the tie with a chance, and you're not completely out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Kieran is back in, and he says, Crossy, you are a West Ham legend. End of. As simple as that. And you certainly are, Crossy. And we've had you on several times, and we totally appreciate you spending the time. I mean, again, I reiterate from myself, and listening to all the stories that my dad tells me as well. It is an absolute privilege to speak to you genuinely each single time you come on. You respect us as the fan base, and we absolutely love having you on.
Well, Anton, it's great for me. I mean, West Ham changed my career, and not just the players and the club, it was the fans. And I'm not just saying that, to suck up people's backsides. It was huge for me to play at Upton Park, because the fans, I couldn't wait to get out there. Where in the early part of my career, I was nervous. Will I do all right today? Will things go well? Will I score? Will the fans like me? And when I got to Upton Park and played my 5 seasons there, it was completely different. I just couldn't wait to get down Green Street on a Saturday afternoon to get to the game and get changed and get out there on that field. I just couldn't wait, because the fans took to me. And West Ham, even though I played for 8-9 clubs, for me West Ham was my club, and the one I always associate myself with. The fan base, the players, the coaches, the way that certainly we played, the West Ham way, passing, football, good players, and people like me getting on the end of stuff. That was huge for me. And West Ham is my club, even though it does sound a bit trite. I understand that, but I really mean that. The fans were so good to me. They really were. And it just changed. Those 5 years from being 27, my 27th birthday when I signed for the club, and the 5 years that I had up until being 32 were the best 5 years of my career.
Love it. Absolutely brilliant. Crossy, if you had a chance to go into that changing room a couple of minutes before kickoff, what would you say to the players tomorrow?
You'd say, I mean, obviously working hard is huge. You know that you never can predict what's going to happen out there. You've just got to give everything you've got. You know your job, and that is a key thing that comes from a manager. If as a team, every single player knows what his role in that system is that day, then you've got a chance. And if they give everything they've got, then you've got a chance. So that would be the big thing for me. And I remember John Lyle saying when we played in the cup final, don't miss the game. That's what he said. Don't miss the game. Don't let the game be too big so that you, half an hour after the game's finished, you haven't given what you wanted to give. Don't miss the fact that you're out there playing in a big game and it's flown past you because you're either too nervous or you just can't cope with the atmosphere. So just give everything you've got and don't miss your chance of playing in this game. That's the kind of advice that we were given by John when you played huge games. And these games are always huge now. Every game is a bit huger than the last one, isn't it? When you get into semi-finals and then to finals. Yeah. So you just 100% is all you can ask from any player.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. David Cross, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Everyone in the chat is absolutely buzzing. We could be here for hours and hours and hours answering all the questions and looking through all the comments. And I'd love to have you back on again. And fingers crossed we can have you back on again should we get through the next game as well.
I'll tell you what I'll do, Anton. If we do get through, and hopefully we will do to the final, whoever we're playing, I'll do my background on them, knowing and hoping that I'm going to get the call to come on.
Brilliant, excellent,
and have a chat with you. It's really nice to. I mean, going back to what I said about the West Ham fans, for me, sitting here, being able to talk to a fan base from West Ham is huge for me. I was a lad from Rochdale who never thought I'd got a chance of being a professional footballer, and I got, I had that career that I had, ending virtually with 5 seasons at West Ham where I got all those goals. I just owe so much to the West Ham fans, that it's massive for me to be honoured to be able to be on your podcast and talk to West Ham fans about my time there.
Love it. Thank you very much, Mr. Cross. Enjoy the game tomorrow, and stay safe, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, Anton. Thanks a lot.
Very much. No worries. David, take care, mate. Bye-bye.
And you.
One absolute pleasure, everyone. One absolute pleasure. See, when we get the opportunity to talk to these ex-players and stuff, it's honestly, it's quite, it just takes me aback sometimes as well. It just really does. And it's nice to see all the comments, and I really hope you have enjoyed it. If you haven't already, go and check out the Mark Noble era video that Russ did last night. What a great video. And we had a surprise guest and Jimmy Walker appearing on the channel as well. So that was good. Of course, he of course played with Mark Noble as well, so it was nice to have that kind of guest appearance from Jimmy Walker. There's been a daily out yesterday. We've done a show on Lewis Potter from Hull. He could potentially coming in. Did a Hammers headlines talking about potentially Zuma being made available. What we do know is that Zuma hasn't trained today with the squad, but Ajay Alessi has. So that's going to be an interesting take on what Moyes does moving forward. We're going to be doing Hammers headlines at 5 o'clock, so make sure you do join us for that. I really hope you have enjoyed that, and we'll definitely get him back on again. I think that's his hat trick, if not his quadruple appearance as well. Happy Hammerette. Thank you, David. You are a legend. Well done, West Ham Network. We are massive. Everyone hit the like button and the subscribe button. Thank you very much. Kieran, thank you very much again, and I hope you enjoyed that, mate. Thanks, David. You are massive. Amazing, Anton. Bloody nice bloke. He really is. He really, really is. Jeff, thanks, David. Great memories of the 1980 FA Cup final from here in Australia. How proud you must be of your daughter Kate bowling for the English team. I was secretly supporting here. Shush. Jeff, I'm going to clip that, and I'm going to send that comment to him so he actually sees your comment. And when we get him back on, I'll make sure I bring that back up. I really want you to him to see that. I'm sorry I didn't actually put that up when he was there as well. I could listen to Crossy all day long, as could I. So if you are new around here, please make sure you do go and hit that subscribe button. Of course, we're on the march to 20,000 subscribers. Hit the bell notification. That will notify you when a show does go live. Tomorrow is Europa League day. I've packing my bags. My son's packed his bags. My dad's packed his bags. We are coming down in numbers from Scotland. We're going to be singing loud and proud tomorrow, and I cannot wait to be in that stadium. Make sure you do join us for the shows we've got coming up, and stay safe. And finally, come on, you Irons.
It's like a family tree, part of you and